If you're like me and you don't like celebrating Halloween, then this is the podcast episode for you.
After high demand,
Listening to you and Justin, that's a professional podcast right there.
the man with a voice.
He's got a wicked voice on it too. He does. He's got like, oh my goodness. I listen to his voice. I'm like, dude, you could go places with that voice. You are freaking phenomenal.
Has his own podcast. And what does he think?
Oh,
BoyStick presents the Honestly Lazy Podcast.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, how's it going? It's your boy Stick. Come back at you with another podcast. Well, the Honestly Lazy Podcast. I just introduced this like it was an old boy Stick video. Let me try that again. Welcome to the Honestly Lazy Podcast with your host, me, Boy Stick. Feels good to be here. Yep. Another episode, another day. Not really sure what the hell I was going to talk about all week. Was feeling pretty uncreative, but throughout being uncreative, something came out of me today because I realized, oh shit, Halloween is coming up like really soon. So I figured, why not do a little something different? Oh shit. Sorry, I got a new cord. It's like a lot better than the one I had that is still on the mic. So I figured pretty much why not just do a Honestly Lazy Halloween special, but a little bit of a different special from everybody else's. Before I jump into it, I'd like to say thank you very much to people who are actually listening to this podcast. Honestly, I'm getting a lot of reviews, or people just kind of tell me that they're listening to it, telling me I'm doing good and stuff. They could be lying. I don't know. They could be, and if they are, thanks for lying at least and saying I'm doing a good job. But to the people who actually listen, once again, thank you very much. It's only 4 episodes in. I'm having a blast with it. That last episode talking about the small town, I was really nervous about, especially when I posted on Reddit and a guy commented on it saying, who do you think would really listen to this shit? Which kind of got me like, that's a good point. Who would really listen to this shit? But at the same time, it's a podcast. So you can talk about whatever the fuck you want. Look at Bill Burr. Bill Burr talks about the most random shit. And then people just take the highlights and just upload it to YouTube. But yes, I am actually having a lot of fun with this podcast from a guy who really wasn't sure about doing a podcast because I've chirped him so much because my buddy TJ does them from the Hotter Show. But it is a lot easier to create with a podcast than a BoyStick video. But I'll be getting into that in the next episode. I know I keep saying why podcasts are taking over, and that pod is coming. Don't worry. But that one I'm really, really nervous to do because I have like points, but I'm worried that they're not going to be good enough and people are just going to comment and tell me that I'm shit, even though that guy did on the last episode. But it's one of those things. That's one episode that I really want to have down packed before I upload. Like, this is just literally fucking around and just needed something to come out because I did promise it last week, but last week was a busy week. This is the next shout out, I guess. Shout out to my brother Brandon. He just got married to his lovely wife Alana. That's why I was busy last week, pretty much just trying to get a speech ready because I had to do one, and I nailed it apparently. And that was a lot of work and a lot of stress. I had my mind not even towards making content. I was just more focused on getting that down packed. But you know, this week is a new week, and I know on Instagram I promised a podcast and 2 bonus clips. The bonus clips are coming, and they're probably actually going to be Halloween related, but I'll get into that in a little bit because one of the topics, I guess, or points I have, like I always say, I just write little points on a cue card and I bullshit it from there. I should probably say this because I don't say it enough. I don't think I've really said it all, but the Honestly Lazy Podcast is also available on Spotify, Bunker, I do believe, iTunes, podcasts, and a bunch of our stuff. You can check out my anchor.fm in the description down below, or you can just go on either one. Go on Spotify and type in the Honestly Lazy Podcast, and it will come up. which I think is awesome. Anchor.fm is hands down the best. Is it FM? Whatever website is in the description. I'm pretty sure it's FM. It's hands down the best way to get your podcast out there. Oh my God. My buddy told me about it, and I uploaded my first episode to it. And next thing you know, it was on Spotify. Like right when I uploaded it to this website, it sent it straight to Spotify, which I've heard people say you have to pay to get on Spotify, or, you know, it takes a lot of work to get on Spotify. When I first heard about people getting their podcasts and shit on Spotify, I honestly thought it was like you had to pay or they had to choose you or something like that, and I thought it was a big deal. Turns out it's not that big of a deal, and you can just upload it. But being on Spotify is probably the best place to listen to it. I'm not uploading it to SoundCloud because it costs money to put it on there. But yeah, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Does anybody even use Apple Podcasts? I don't know. I always wondered that. Oh man, another podcast. I don't get it. 5 episodes and you guys are still listening to my voice. I don't understand it. Thank you very much. But yes, let's get to this cue card. But so like I said, like others, I'm sure I'm not the biggest fan of Halloween anymore. When I was a little kid, I loved Halloween. I loved dressing up. I loved being creative. I loved pretty much everything about it. I dressed up as Frankenstein, a hippie, the most basic, a pirate, you know, a firefighter. The only thing that kind of happened is when it really kind of lost its touch for me was high school, and that's when the high school parties were coming around, and you know, everyone would dress up for them, and I never did. And through all that, you kind of gotta learn your ways of how to get through Halloween, because like me, I didn't like dressing up. I hate horror movies, and you gotta figure out ways to get away with not being a part of Halloween, I guess. I don't really know. There's a few ways. The first thing I'm going to kind of touch on is how to dress up without dressing up. And this is a pretty simple one, how you dress up without dressing up. Now, the way I usually do it when I'm going to a Halloween party and I really don't want to dress up is I own a lot of plaid. All right. Well, no, I don't own a lot of plaid. I own a flannel and I own a green toque. All right, so this is the first idea that you can do. You can put that old flannel on and put on that green toque and put on some jeans and some work boots. I wouldn't really recommend the work boots, but if you really want to dress up like this, then go ahead, put on the work boots, and you just walk in the party. When they ask you, you literally just say that you're a lumberjack. It's the simplest thing. See, but a lot of people already knew me beforehand. Like, you're not dressing up. You always dress. I always see you with that same holy ass cigarette, like burned flannel. You just put a toque on. Now you said you're a lumberjack. Here's the deal, though. It always worked. I don't know. Like, you say you're a lumberjack, and well, people stop asking you. Okay, you're a lumberjack. I think the only time I really dressed up was when I had a girlfriend. I dated a girl for 2 years. I remember the first year we dated, I went up to her university and dressed up with her, and I dressed up as a cop. And I think since I was about 12 years old, that was the hardest I've ever dressed up. I actually went out to a costume store. I didn't buy a costume. I already had a blue shirt. I literally went out and bought a badge for my girlfriend and a hat for her. I bought everything for her. I was like, well, I don't need too much. For that year, I was a cop, and I remember I said, I want to be a party cop. And how I did that was my ex had some duct tape, and I duct taped drunk EST 95. So drunk established 95, because it was too much to write drunk since 95 for some reason. I was drunk when I created this little piece of work. And the funniest thing is that duct tape was on the back of that shirt for about a year after Halloween. That was hands down the only year that I really dressed up. And then the year after, I told her, I'm not dressing up like that again. Like, I don't like dressing up. It's a lot of work, and costumes to me are extremely uncomfortable, I guess. I don't know. Some people really show their creativity in a costume. Me, I show my creativity by sitting in front of a microphone and talking into it for like a half hour, 45 minutes, hopefully. I don't know how this podcast is going to go yet. I have high hopes that I'll hit at least 30 minutes. Just because Suda Bird told me that's what I had to do. But no, that was the hardcore. The year after is when I learned the flannel and the toque, right? And it worked for that year. Back in high school, though, I didn't have that. I didn't have the toque. I didn't have a toque back in high school. I still went into flannel and jeans, but I had a flat rim. So let's say that. All right. So now that's one option. You still have the flannel and jeans, and you have a flat rim on, and people ask you what you are. This is the best one yet, because you can just say that you are a 90s rapper. I don't know if the rappers wear flannels nowadays. They kind of got out of that phase. That was like a 90s look. You know, all the rappers had flannels and flat rims and drove 6'4s and all that shit. I'm pretty sure I still drive to 6'4s, but you say that you're a 90s rapper. All right? That's a good idea. All right, same thing, flannel, jeans, and a flat rim. Now, this one is the tricky one. Let's say you don't own a flannel, but you own jeans and you just have regular clothes and you just want to get to this Halloween party, but you know motherfuckers are going to be bugging you. All right? So let's say you're dressed like me right now. If you're not watching on YouTube, I'm just wearing a sweater, jeans, and my regular hat that I always have on this podcast and usually on BoyStick. Let's say you just go in and you're wearing your regular clothes and people ask you what the hell you are. Now, this is tricky. You can just say the regular, which is what I started with, but once I got the booze kicked in, I started getting way more creative. But if you get the booze kicked in and you don't really know what else to say, just say the most simple one ever. Are you ready for this? I'm sure you've all already heard it. You are a nudist on strike. Hands down, will always work. How can they be fucking mad? A nudist on strike. It's ingenious, right? You just show up like that. Now, if you're in clothes like this and you want to get tricky, you got to think of a new costume every time someone asks you. One year, I went in my regular clothes and someone asked, and people were asking me. So I started off with the nudist on strike. And then the second guy asked me, and I said, you know what? I'm a professional skateboarder, because no one skated in high school besides me and like a few other people. So they didn't know how skaters actually dress. For all they knew, I dressed like a skater, which back then I probably did. I don't know. I'd have to look at the pictures back then. Probably had my skate hat on. So yeah, I'd definitely say I was a skater. And then when the next person asked, usually by the third person, I was tanked. So I would say I'm an alcoholic. Ingenious, right? These are like, and they're going to sit there and say, well, that's a shitty costume, but it's a costume. They can't sit there and say that's not a costume, because you know what? You have a beer in your hand and you're sloshed out of your mind. It works. You are a alcoholic for the night. The next day, it hurts a lot more. Oh my God. I'm starting to think of all the other ones I said. And then I said a rapper for one, but no one believed that. I was not dressed like a rapper at all. What was the other one? I had a few, I remember. You could also say I'm Justin's evil twin. Said that one once. That one really didn't work. Yeah, that was about it. I swear to God, I had more, but I can't think of them right now. You gotta understand, I was like 17 when people were asking me. I changed it up every single time, and I was friggin' annihilated. So I don't really remember too much of that. But let's say, there's always the other one. There's always one more if you're a hardcore beer drinker. And this one worked for me for 1 year. I can't believe it worked. I went out with my college friends out to my buddy's town, and we were invited to a Halloween party. And my one buddy had literally went all out and had looked like he was riding a dinosaur. My other buddy had long hair, so he said he was Wayne from Wayne's World. And I was saying, like, I got fucking nothing. So if you're a beer drinker, usually a case of beer gives you something. Sometimes a t-shirt, sometimes a hat, sometimes a cup. Sometimes, because you've been drinking so long, you get all three. Luckily, I got a hat and a toque from a case of beer because my favorite beer is Budweiser, and I drink it so much that I had a shirt and a toque. So I went as Budman, which is the drunk superhero for Budweiser. And I actually started talking to a girl, and she said, "What are you supposed to be?" And I said, "I am Budman." And she said, "What the fuck is that?" I'm like, "I'm the superhero for Bud." The only thing is, Budweiser doesn't ever, and I mean ever, make a cape. So if you really are looking to do that extra step, you might get a flag from some other beer, but I had no luck. I just had to go without a cape. I just said I was a superhero like Spider-Man. Spider-Man never wore a cape. And it kind of worked, kind of didn't. Didn't end up getting any chicks that night, unfortunately. Because my costume wasn't good enough. The only thing I don't understand about the costumes is, are they really appealing, I guess is the word? Appealing? There's a lot of makeup. I don't even know where I'm going with that. All right. You learned... So I'm not even sure where I'm going with that. I'm sorry. I'm very uncreative when it comes to Halloween, but I'm going to show you how to get through it. Now, the next one is how to bail on scary movies. Now, if you're like me and you live in the middle of nowhere, the last thing you fucking need is to go see a scary movie and then come back to the house that you live in that's in the middle of nowhere and deal with no lighting in the backyard, and you think something's going to come up and try to kill you while you sleep. That's it. Right? So I want to show you a few things that you can say that will get you out. The first one is obviously say no and deal with the criticism and everyone calling you a pussy. Now this one requires thick skin, and I know for some people it's hard to have thick skin. Even it can be scary, I know, because they're going to make fun of you, and some people don't like being made fun of. Now for me, I had no problem for saying no and being called a pussy for a week. Fuck that. I don't understand why people love the idea of going to a horror movie and getting scared. I don't understand why people do this and love it. Like, I like to sleep. I like to sleep at least 8 hours. If a horror movie comes on, guess what? I'm not sleeping for like 3 fucking days. When that killer clown phase was happening all around the States and somewhere around Canada, I was working at 4 a.m. and that was hands down the most terrifying thing. Especially when the old co-host of the HonestlyLazyShow, Craig St. Clair, texted me and said there was one in our town. That scared the shit out of me. I just started losing a lot of sleep. I walked around with my keys in between my knuckles, like brass knuckles, just in case I saw the freaking clown. Like, I don't like being scared. So even when I do the podcast, I make sure the lights, or it's still light out. I don't like shooting at night because I'm scared like either one of my roommates or something are going to fuck with me because I got a big window right in front of me. So horror, I had no problem with saying no. But if you're too scared to say no, and this one requires one thing. If you're in high school, this might be a bit harder, but if you're out of school, you should have this. It requires you having a fucking job. And what I mean by that is you got to have a job, because all you got to say is, I can't, I got to work tonight. And then when we'll reschedule for you when, you have a night off. Man, I'm working for like the next 5 days. You know what? Just go without me. I'll wait till it's out on DVD and I'll watch it with you then. By the time it comes out on DVD, they'll forget about it and they'll never ask you about it again. It's the most ingenious thing to do. I never did that though, because I always one of the first options that said, fuck that. No horror movies for me. Don't like being scared. I'm just going to be honest with you. But that's one. Just say you got to work, and usually they forget about it. And the next one is, if they're planning on it, usually they plan a little bit ahead. And they're talking about it throughout the week and stuff. And they're going to ask you, the day they ask, say you got the shits. No one will ever ask questions if you say you have the shits. Just say, sorry, dude, my stomach's been acting up. I got the shits. It will always work. That's the thing that I like to do. Or this is the fourth option. All right. So I got say no, say you got to work, or say you got the shits. But here's an option that people don't understand. And it always works because every horror movie has this. And that is that there's always a really dumb flaw on why the horror movie's happening. And that's what I think the bonus clips are going to be about, because I have two horror movies that I'm like, wow, I found this, and I talked about how that ruined the whole movie for me so much that I didn't even have to watch the rest of it because the person got mad at me. All you gotta do is find that one point where it's like, that would never happen in real life, or are you serious, the characters are this stupid and this had to happen, and just bug the living shit out of them. They'll say turn it off or tell you to leave, and that's you're already free to go. Honestly, every horror movie has this weird flaw. If you don't believe me, go watch this guy on YouTube, YourMovieSucks.org. He breaks down like the horror movies that people thought were so good, and he breaks them down and shows you, wow, this is actually a piece of shit. And I love watching him because I don't want to watch horror movies, and if he breaks them down like this, it really does help me sleep at night. I mean, he broke down The Strangers, which The Strangers, to me, I thought everybody loved. And when I saw him doing a review on it and breaking it down, I was like, oh, he might actually say it's good, because sometimes he does. Nope. He just tore it apart. He did Unfriended, which Unfriended in the first place, when I saw the trailer for it, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, why is this even a movie? Like, are you serious? A girl kills herself and then she possesses their Skype while they're having a Skype call and starts killing them all. I mean, the first guy gets killed by putting his hand in a blender. Like, she makes him put his hand in a blender. Like, what were the writers thinking? We need to think of a new creative way to kill somebody, because you can't just use a knife. No. Can't use a gun. No. Even though they did use both, but we're going to use something a little bit different. We're going to use a blender. I don't understand it. To me, that's just a terrible one. He also did this movie I never heard of called Asylum. If you've never seen that movie, just watch his review. I don't even want to see it, but even what he was making fun of, I was like, damn, these are good points. I respect this guy. But if you are not a fan of horror movies and you would rather prefer watching being broke down in a really funny way, I'd recommend YourMovieSucks.org, because that YouTube channel is funny as shit and he makes good points. He's kind of like Jim Jeffries. But that's what I would honestly recommend. And I think for the bonus clip, I'm going to tell you how my ex tried to make me watch Joyride, and there was just one little scene that made me say, this movie's trash and I don't even need to watch the rest of it, because this is the reason why the whole thing started. And it's to me, it's one of the most unrealistic ways on how to get a horror movie started. It was like, are you serious? Are you that stupid with this type of thing? Are you that lazy as a writer? I mean, there are good horror movies out there, probably. I've never seen them. I think the horror movie I've watched is I've watched maybe Saw 2 and Saw 1. I don't even know if that counts as horror or thriller. I've seen Scream. Once again, don't even know if it counts. It could just be a thriller. Anything that's actually I've never seen any of the Friday the 13th. Never seen any of the Nightmare on Elm Street. I've never seen any of the Halloweens. I've never seen anything. If it looks scary, I steer clear. I've seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know what? That counts as a horror movie. And I saw the one with I didn't see the original. I saw the one with Jessica Biel, and that was a piece of utter trash. I hated it. I watched it. I remember I watched a little bit on TV, and then I found it on the internet, and I watched it, and I was like, "This is it." I was terrified of that movie for years. I never wanted to watch it because I was like, oh shit, this is like someone could actually do this, chasing you with a chainsaw. Now I'm watching it and I was like, the characters are stupid. Every character is stupid in a horror movie, and that's why I keep going back, man. If you find out how the character's stupid and you don't want to watch the horror movie, you just bust that character's balls and say, see, now this would happen if he didn't do that or she didn't do that. Now this wouldn't happen if you didn't do this. Now this wouldn't, blah, blah. Just keep blaming that fucking character, and they will kick you out of watching the movie with them. And then you can go home and do whatever the hell you want to do. Play your old school RuneScape, drink some beer. I don't know what else to do at home. That's what I do. I drink beer and play old school RuneScape. Maybe watch a hockey game, I guess. Watch a hockey game, play RuneScape, and make podcasts. That's what I do with my life. I am a loser. Whatever. I have fun with it. So those are just a few points to get you through your Halloween. I tried my best. This was a last minute thing. I'm sorry, guys. I honestly like hearing myself talk through this. I feel like I actually did a decent job for just literally, I thought of it today. I was like, that's a good idea. And I went with it. Like I said, the podcast is on Spotify, iTunes Music, Bunker, I do believe, and I'd have to check my Anchor, but if you want to check where it is, go check the description down below at anchor.fm, and I'll have all the links right there for you. I'd like to give a couple shout outs before I go, because I don't think I did that at the beginning. I didn't shout anybody else as my brother, I don't think. But once again, shout out to Suda Bird, my boy from the States. He has been giving me pretty much the best reviews, I guess. Every episode he's been giving me a little bit of advice or just saying, dude, you're doing good. He's been paying attention actually more to the views than I have, because I said, dude, my podcasts are getting no views, and he said, you know what, you'd be surprised. And they're getting 50 views, which to me, I didn't think they'd even get 10, so I'm doing something right. Also give a shout out to obviously my boy Uncle Dusty, the savage of I guess he's on Spotify now. This guy has been kicked off YouTube so many times for his savage comedy. I love him to death for it, though, because he don't give a fuck and he just keeps uploading. So I respect Uncle Dusty to death. Shout out to Brandon Bowden, a guy who's actually in the radio industry, who listens to my podcast, who wants to be on the podcast. He's been saying good things about me, and he's the one who's actually in the intro saying that I have a wicked voice and stuff. That's all him. He's one of the guys I actually kind of look up to because he's in the industry, and he actually used to have a podcast. And Brandon, if you're listening to this, bring back Radio A, because I loved the living shit out of that podcast. Also shout out again to Brandon and Alana. You guys, congratulations, are getting married. 10 years in the making. So glad to see that finally happen. Who else do I want to give a shout out to? Obviously, Paul Williams over at the Warm Beer Podcast. He's been listening to every episode. Shout out to everybody at my work who have been listening to it and actually giving me reviews. You guys have been honestly making this a lot easier for me to do, because I was nervous as hell to really do podcasting, but everyone's been digging it, so I dig it. Shout out to... who else I gotta give a shout out to? I had someone. I can't think of. I guess... damn, I can't think of the last one. If I missed you, I'm sorry, but, these are honestly lazy. So the podcast is the podcast. You deal with what the fuck I give you. Again, if you like this, please like and subscribe. I would love to get other content on here, more series on the Honestly Lazy Show, and more than just a podcast, like vlogging and shit, because at the end of the day, I like to film more than record audio. But I like this is an easy way to get content out and an easy way for me to get my creativity out. So podcasting is fun, I guess. That episode is coming, why podcasting is taking over. What else do I have to say? I can't think of anything else, but I almost made it 2.5 hours. Suda Bird, I did my best. I am literally maybe a minute or two off, but I'm sure you'll understand. I am trying my best. Oh, you know what? I'll give one more shout out. Shout out to Quinn Marr over at Guys Being Dudes. He wants me to get some merch going, and he has ways for me to actually get it going, and he's actually been helping me out a lot with trying to figure out ways to get my pod or get like merch for Honestly Lazy out. So there might be merch in the future. I don't know. I'm just playing that all by ear. But it will be coming, I hope. Besides that, this has actually been pretty fun. Pretty decent podcast, I'd say. You hear that? I think I need a new pop filter. Whoa. This is what I do. You guys don't know my sound check. Maybe I'll do a video of me how I warm up. How I get warmed up, get myself pumped up before I record a podcast. But yeah, until next time, it's your boy Stick, and this is the Honestly Lazy podcast, and I hope you guys have a great week. And of course, my camera's memory card just filled up, so this is where I gotta go. All right, see you guys.